Okay, we're live. Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us for tonight's episode of the Warrior Moms podcast. My name is Trina Rothman, and my guest tonight is Sarah Washington. And Sarah actually is on vacation right now, kind of in between like cellular towers. So we're trying our best. There's a little crackling going on, but hopefully everyone can hear what we have to say tonight. So thank you for joining us. And if you want to help us grow, please like, share, comment, and create watch parties. So that way we can grow our community and reach more warrior moms and dads. So all of that being said, we're going to jump right into tonight's show. And Sarah, thank you for joining us while you're on vacation. How are you today?
I'm so well. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I know it's crazy. Should we tell them what we've been trying to do to get a good connection?
I know, like we have been. Sarah has been driving like all over town and like walking through her like the river, and I met some guy named Neil. We are trying so hard to give you guys a good like connection here. So Sarah is definitely, she is a team player today. So but because we have such a limited connection, I want to make sure you get your story out. So Sarah, why don't you tell us how your Warrior Mom's journey unfolded?
Yes. Okay. Like how I found out about you guys, or how my story unfolded?
How your story unfolded.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I am a mom to a beautiful, sweet, sassy, spunky, smart, silly, very naughty little 9-year-old named Mary Elizabeth. And she is my warrior. She has something called cerebral palsy, which basically means a brain injury of an unknown origin, and epilepsy as well, which is a seizure disorder. And yeah, so that's kind of how our journey started. She was diagnosed when she was little. She was just 4 months old. And we knew probably like day 2 or 3 that something wasn't right with her. And then we kind of went from doctor to doctor to doctor to try to figure out, what's going on, what's wrong. And so finally, 12 weeks later, we had an MRI and an EEG. We were inpatient in the hospital, and we got the diagnosis. And then our journey kind of began from there. So
it was that the cerebral palsy diagnosis?
We got both. Yeah. So we got CP
okay,
because there was brain damage on her MRI. And she's significant. She would be considered severe in the category of, like how we kind of have a range of cerebral palsy is a range, right? So you can have some people that you can't really tell that they even have it because, it's not very obvious that they're affected. And then you have kiddos like Mary Elizabeth who are considered pretty severe. So she doesn't walk or talk yet. She's in a wheelchair, and she uses a communication device with her eyes to talk. But yeah, so that's kind of how that happened. And then also that hospital stay, we found out that she was having seizures as well. So lots of really crazy, devastating news all in one day. We also found out that day that she was blind. And so her pupils didn't react to light. The crazy thing is, and when I think back on it, and I spoke with my husband and I have both agreed on this, that the blind diagnosis, the one where her pupils weren't reacting to light and that it didn't appear that she was seeing, was kind of the most devastating, which is kind of weird because now I don't even think about that. But back then, I guess I just had whenever you're not living in this world with a kiddo who has special needs or special challenges, you just are kind of what I call blissfully ignorant. You don't know what you don't know. And so the blind piece of it really scared us, and the other 2 parts we were like, oh, she's going to be okay. And we're 9 years later, and we are okay, but lots and lots of really significant challenges. So
okay. So when you and I were talking in the interview process for the show, what I found so interesting about your warrior journey is that you have tried a lot of alternative therapies. So can you elaborate on that so like the people watching will know what I mean when I say alternative therapy?
Yeah, definitely. And to be quite honest, that kind of happened organically and naturally. So when she was diagnosed, part of the reason we knew something wasn't right is that she just started screaming when she was 3 days old, and she just didn't just scream, just nonstop. She would eat and then scream and then fall asleep and then wake up screaming. And that kind of went on for a very long time. And so once you get a diagnosis, you get set up with physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy and all of the different things that you can do to try to help your kiddo out. And she wasn't going for it. She just screamed the whole time. Like I think we went through like 15 PTs in the first year because she just screamed the entire time, and we would do that, week after week after week, and that for me as a mom like broke my heart, and then I would end up crying at the end of the sessions. It was pretty intense, and so the first couple of years of her life were pretty intense, and so we. My personality, I guess, is pretty aggressive, type A, like kind of ready to go after stuff. I'm a doer. If anybody knows about the Enneagram, I'm an 8. And so my job was just to find out what I could do to help her, number one, to stop the crying, really, but then number two, what can we do to help her? And so I just started doing tons and tons of research online and reaching out to other moms, which was really kind of it's been the changing factor in this journey is being able to do things like this and to talk to other moms who've been there, done that, and who have ideas and input and can empathize with what's going on. And so that's kind of how we happened upon something called ABM therapy. It's Anat Banyol therapy. She is pretty famous in the special needs world for helping kiddos with developmental issues and delays. And so that was our first trip. We went to San Francisco when Mary Elizabeth was 6 months old and saw Anat at her center in San Francisco. And that was the one therapy that Mary Elizabeth didn't scream through. And so when we got back, we were living in New Orleans at the time. We're from Louisiana. Recently, we've been in Texas for 5 years now, but I still claim myself as a Louisiana girl. And so when we got back to Louisiana, we found an instructor who and a practitioner who did something called Feldenkrais, which is pretty much the same thing as ABM. They just kind of call it different things. But so we found a Feldenkrais person in New Orleans who was fabulous. And so we just started working with her. And through that kind of world, we just kind of branched out and found different things. And so we started doing stem cells when she was, I think our first stem cell trip, she was 13 months old. We went to Panama with the Stem Cell Institute and had an infusion, so an IV infusion of mesenchymal or MSC stem cells. And we've been doing that every year since then, sometimes a couple of times a year, whatever we can afford, we do it. And we started doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy when she was about 10 months old with Dr. Harch, who is in New Orleans as well. And we just started kind of plugging away at doing our own types of therapies because she just couldn't tolerate the normal traditional stuff. And the further we kind of got into that world, the more we realized like, hey, this might be the right place for our family. And so then we started looking into nutrition and just, everything. And so throughout the past 9 years, we've tried it, we've done it, we probably have bought it. we have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in our house. We have something called a beamer mat, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequency, kind of like grounding, if you're familiar with that concept. We do acupuncture. We do a blended diet. She has a G tube, which is like a little, we call it a button, but it looks kind of like an inner tube. We're floating on the river this week. It looks just like what you would blow into an inner tube to inflate it. And Mary Elizabeth has trouble swallowing. She does something called micro aspiration. So whenever you're drinking a drink and it goes down the wrong tube and you start coughing, Mary Elizabeth does that with everything, just kind of just slobber even. And so she gets fed through a special tube in her tummy called a G tube. and most of the hospitals and dietitians would try to get us to give her formula through her G tube, like Pediasure and that sort of stuff. Ensure they do for older people, but if you look at the labels, it's just sugar, and processed stuff. And we knew that wasn't going to get us any further better than using real whole good organic foods. And so we started doing a blended diet with her right away. We were the first ones at Children's Hospital in New Orleans to do that. And then now I think it's pretty common to do a blended diet. So, I mean, yeah, we've kind of just a lot of research, a lot of talking with other moms and figuring out what worked, what didn't work. And we, if it sounded reasonable and if the risk was low, we gave it a shot. So.
Well, I love that because, people know me a lot for my advocacy for cannabis. And so I definitely believe that there is a world out there that's, pharmaceuticals are great in some ways, like they can really help. But there's also, I think you always have to have pharmaceuticals and something natural. I think you always have to have the combination of the two. I don't think we were meant to have just pharmaceuticals or just formula in your G tube. Like, no, we definitely will benefit from eating whole foods and eating stuff to fuel our body rather than to just satiate it. And so, with my daughter, we have her on a very restrictive diet. We do try to give her things like, we have these issues like where the other day somebody got Hertz donuts and my daughter didn't get Hertz donuts because she's on the keto diet. But, we did try to come up with something for her, like a keto version of it. My husband is in the kitchen all the time trying to recreate ideas or recreate things for her. So that way she can have, the normal kid stuff. But we definitely believe that diet plays a huge role in, the success of our children.
Yeah, and bigger than I think what we even maybe give it credit for, because it took me a while to figure out, that Mary Elizabeth's gut health was linked directly to her seizure activity. And so I can always know, definitely the other stuff like lack of sleep or a lot of stress or flashing lights, things that are kind of obvious that people tell you, or doctors tell you, but they don't really talk a ton about gut health. And what I know and what our family knows is that if Mary Elizabeth's gut health and if her GI system is not working perfectly, then we have seizures. Like it's an easy dot to cross now, like A to B. Like I know. So if she starts, if she's not having regular bowel movements, if she starts getting backed up, or if she's having tummy pains or gas or something's going on that doesn't seem right, we almost always have seizures. So yeah, it's so important, and I don't know that we stress it enough, and I don't think we talk about it enough, because what we give our bodies and what we put into them and what we're taking in and what we're nourishing ourselves with makes a huge difference in overall health, but definitely for neurological kids like mine, in her brain activity. So
absolutely, I agree with that. And we actually later on, I think in September, we're going to have a certified keto person. I don't actually know. I think she's a certified keto coach. I don't know. She's going to be on the show. So I definitely believe that health and wellness is linked to what I said. It's like the success of our children. Like, to have a good day, we need to make sure that we're feeding them good things. And so
yeah.
I know we have people watching us tonight, so we're just going to say hi to Brenda and Renee and Francis. They've all joined us on the show tonight. So thank you so much for watching live, you guys. We are an interactive show, so if you have any questions, go ahead and put those into the comments, and I'll bring them up onto the screen, and Sarah or I will be able to answer them for you. So another thing that I have, most warrior moms have had to advocate for their child in one way or another. So you tapped on being able to do the traditional therapies and then doing the alternative therapies. But have you had to advocate for Mary Elizabeth in any other ways?
Yeah. I feel like that's my life now, like advocating, arguing. I mean, I don't know how that's advocating a really sweet way to put it, right? But yes, that's pretty much all I do. And so, yeah, I do it in all areas of life. Like I remember, when we first were getting started in like the kind of overwhelming, when we first got diagnosed in the medical world, we would write down all of our questions before we went into the doctor's office. And then, because you know how doctors are, like they schedule every 15 minutes. And so they're in and out. And if if you forget, or if you get nervous, or if they just talk about something else and then leave, like you're SOL until the next time, or if you can catch the nurse, or, whatever. And so my husband would stand at the door, like almost like you can't leave. And then I would ask my questions and communicate, and then he would not move until we got what we needed, till we had the answers or till we were satisfied. So that was one thing that we learned to do early on that has been, and I still do it with medical visits now. I'm a lot more savvy now because I've been doing it for a while, but I still will write down my questions. And if I don't know every single one of them by heart, then I will bring them out and I will tell the doctor, I have a few questions before we leave that I really need you to answer. And now we have relationships with our doctors. We've known them for years. And so it's not really a big deal for me, but I know in the beginning that was so overwhelming. And so we had to kind of advocate for time and for information. The other part, I feel like, so I'll just talk about the insurance piece of it and just living in that world. I feel like I'm constantly trying to argue with the insurance companies about, like, what's medically necessary versus what's not medically necessary. And so just for example, Mary Elizabeth, just recently this happened. We had a script from our neurologist, same script, same diagnostic codes, for a car seat, a special needs car seat, and for a gait trainer. And a gait trainer is something that helps kiddos that can't walk, helps them to walk a little better. So think of like a walker for someone. We call them gait trainers in the special needs world. And so the gait trainer was approved and the car seat was denied. And the reason was that they didn't believe that she actually had cerebral palsy. And so it's just like kind of a joke. It's like a slap in the face and a joke. But so then I had to spend, hours on the phone trying to talk to the insurance company about, first of all, it was the exact same script and you approved one and didn't approve the other. It had the CP diagnosis on both of it, like that sort of thing. So that's another piece of advocating. And then out in the community. And so I think a lot of that depends on how I'm feeling that day. Sometimes if I'm gonna, kind of step out of my comfort zone and talk to the people who are staring at us from across the room, or that sort of thing. And so we spend a lot of time doing that too. And I will say that's probably my favorite part about it. Whenever I'm in the right mind, whenever I'm in the right mindset to have conversations with people about Mary Elizabeth, because she can be intimidating if you come up on a person in a wheelchair. That's different than what the norm is. And I try to think back of before I had Mary Elizabeth and how I felt about it. And I think I was probably kind of intimidated too, and not just intimidated, but just really unsure about what to say or do or how to act. And so I do spend a lot of time doing that, especially if I'll make eye contact with someone who's looking, and like, I can tell that they're like not sure if they want to come over and say hi, or what to do. And I will just, kind of maybe say, hey, how are you? This is Mary Elizabeth. She's 9. Like, and I'll tell them, and also kids too. I think kids are great because they don't really have a lot of filters just yet. And so they will come over and ask all sorts of great questions. And then I can just tell them, and it's like they accept it, and we can go about our business. And so that's usually what I do, is I'll just talk about Mary Elizabeth and what she likes. So I'll say, she loves Taylor Swift. She loves rap music. She likes ice cream. She loves to swim, that sort of thing. And I feel like it kind of can personalize her a little bit. And so that people can see her as a person and not this kind of, I don't even know, like a symbol of, someone who's disabled, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. They see her as for who she is rather than for her diagnosis. Yeah.
Right.
So I love the part where you said that your husband stands at the door. Like, I think I'm going to start using that. And Lindy Lindy said the same thing, that it's a genius move. So, like, hats off to you and your husband for figuring that one out. So, so we do have a question from Laura, and I'm going to put it on the screen. Sarah, any tips for bridging the gap between the special needs world and the rest of the world standards and expectations?
Wow, that's
a big question.
Thank you. that requires some thought, but yes. So I think that I think that the world standards, I don't know. I don't really know how to fix that. I think that's very hard, right? And so, and the reason I say that is because the disabled population, I feel like it's almost an afterthought, or maybe it's not like, important's not the right word, because obviously it's super important to me and my family and anybody who's affected by it, but it's not like politically charged or motivated. So there's not a lot of reason for anybody to make any changes if they're not invested like our family, right? So I mean, so I'm part of Protect Texas Fragile Kids, which is like a grassroots advocacy kind of group to get the right laws and things in place for our kiddos. So for example, bathrooms are huge for us, especially now that Mary Elizabeth's getting older and she's not a baby, right? So I can't change her on the baby changing table. And so when we go out in public, like, where am I going to change her diaper? And to be quite honest, I normally end up changing it in the back of my van, because that's the easiest way. And I'm like a huge germaphobe. There's no way I would lay a blanket down and put her on the floor. And I know there are tons of moms that do that, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying my germaphobe anxiety does not allow for that. And so so a lot of times we have to do that, or we have to plan around diaper changes and stuff. I mean, like, it's just like things like that, and or parking spots. Like, so the other day, I was working out at the gym, and there were like 800 parking spots in the parking lot. And this dude pulls up and he parks like halfway in the handicap, halfway in the dotted, the lines across, which, by the way, for people that don't know, that's for the van to open and the ramp to come down and the wheelchair to come out. So if you park in that, like, the person can't get out of the car, right? And he just ran, he ran in to do something and then came back out. But it's like, seriously, come on. So I think that part of it, I don't know how to change standards or expectations, but I do think that if we can communicate, if we can do things like this, and if we can touch one person or one family at a time, I think that's the way to do it. And I feel like in our personal journey, like, I didn't know anything about it before I had Mary Elizabeth. And so I was pretty oblivious too. We live our lives, and we're trying to go to work and take care of our kids and have good relationships. And so we can get caught up in our own stuff and not really know everything that's going on around us. And I think that if we can show people who Mary Elizabeth is and how special and important and what a beautiful, bright, shining light she is in this world, to one family, and then they're changed, right? So now they'll see another person or child or whatever who looks different or is acting differently or is in a wheelchair or whatever, and they will look at that kid and think of Mary Elizabeth. And so their thoughts won't be intimidation or not knowing what to do or any of the weirdness. They will know, like, oh, I could say hi to that person. I could go over and encourage my child to say hi to that person, or I could make it a learning moment for our family. And so I think that's kind of how we do it, Laura, is just one person at a time. And then hopefully, it just continues to spread. Good question. Tough, though.
Yeah, that was a really good question. I agree with everything you just said. I think it is rooted in education, because, the reason why Warrior Moms came about is because I saw that there was not a lot of advocacy for epilepsy, there's not a lot of awareness, and 1 in 26 kids have epilepsy. The world needs to know about this. And so that's how Warrior Moms come about. And we're going to use our voice and our platform to not only advocate for the special needs community at large, the epilepsy community, which also, I guess, falls into the special needs, we'll say that. So just all of these different communities, we're going to encompass them in this Warrior Mom's journey. And that's why we did that episode about what makes a warrior mom. And we wanted to make it known that you don't have to have a special needs child to qualify for warrior mom status. So we believe that anybody who is willing to advocate for their child and for inclusion is a warrior mom in our book. And so Lindy says, would love to hear about parenting both special needs children and a neurotypical child. So I'm out of the game on this one because I only have one kid. So this one's for you, Sarah.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the question, Lindy. And I know that you have both as well. And so I will say it's a tricky place. And I'm starting to navigate it better. I think just by experience and like by messing up and learning from my mistakes. But it's kind of like you have one foot in one world and one foot in the other. And it's a tricky place to be in for a mom and for parents in general, because the neurotypical world and the special needs world they're just so different, and we talk about different stuff. Like, so think about like, a group of moms that you would just be chatting with kind of because you see them every day. Well, in the neurotypical world, for me, that's like basketball practice or Benjamin, my son, it's like his schoolmates' moms and that sort of thing. And then for Mary Elizabeth, it's all the mom friends that I see at therapies or, that Facebook groups that we've met and that sort of thing in those relationships. And so I always feel like it's tricky because I have one foot in that world and one foot in this world, and they're not the same. And so it's very hard to try to kind of go back and forth. And it's a lot of times for me, it's been real hard to have both those worlds together too, if that makes sense. It's a lot easier for me to do just Benjamin or just Mary Elizabeth. But when I have Benjamin and Mary Elizabeth and we're trying to do something, it's tough because I'm in a different place, right? I'm not like the neurotypical moms and I'm not like the special needs moms because I'm trying to kind of juggle both. And so it makes it tough. But the good news about it is that the neurotypical kids are so much better off for it. And what I've learned and what I've seen over the years, from Benjamin and his friends even too, that they reap the benefits of being around Mary Elizabeth as well. And so these kids are super in tune to differences. They're super in tune to everything, right? So what one of his teachers told me one year, and it made me so happy, because we work really hard at home on raising a good, nice, kind kid. And I would, and that he's aware of other people and that they have differences, and to be kind, to show respect, and to realize that these, that's a person, and that, that sort of thing. Is that she said Benjamin is, and this was like maybe third or fourth grade. She said he's the kid with the highest emotional intelligence that she's ever taught. And he's just very much in tune with the other kids and the emotional pieces of it and picking up on it from other people, if that makes sense. And so that's the great news, Lindy, for our neurotypical kids and their friends, is that they get access to something that they maybe wouldn't have access to. And so as they grow, it becomes really normal. Like right now we're on vacation, right? At the river with another family that we've been doing vacation with a few years. And they have a bunch of kids as well. And they're all neurotypical. And then we have Mary Elizabeth, but like, it's not a big deal. Mary Elizabeth is one of the group, and so those kids, our friends' kids now, when they go out and see kiddos that look different or act differently or are in a wheelchair or have a seizure or whatever, number one, it won't be scary or intimidating, but number two, they'll know what to do.
Yes.
And number three, they'll be kind, right? And so maybe this, that generation, like growing up that way, I mean, these kids are going to be different and they're going to be better. And so that's the good part about it. The parenting part is hard though. And I don't really have a ton of tips other than, we try to include Mary Elizabeth in everything that we do. But a lot of times she stays home because it's too risky, or it's past her bedtime, or she can't participate in the activities for whatever reason because they're not, they're not accessible. And so so that part's tough. I would say try to include your special needs kiddo in as many activities as you can, uh, but other than that, I mean, you just have you just kind of have to learn on your own, if that makes sense. And if you can find friends that are can be, that can handle both, right? So because like I have groups of friends, like I have my special needs mom's friends, and then I have, Benjamin's basketball team's friends, and then his school friends or whatever. But then I have a handful of friends that are very comfortable with both, and those are the people that you want to really invest in those relationships. But that's kind of all. I mean, I don't know if there's a ton of parenting advice other than like you'll learn as you go, trust your gut, and really try to include um, your special needs kiddo when appropriate if you can.
I think that's solid advice. I don't think that needs to be elaborated on. I think that was solid. So Lindsay says the challenges in meeting different needs of each child and challenges in the sibling relationship. So I guess that was like an extension of the question, which we missed, but you still covered it in your answer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
well, the sibling. So I do have one thing to say about the sibling thing, and I don't know if I did this right in the beginning, but I'm trying to do it better now. Benjamin would maybe my 11-year-old would be like, "No, you don't, mom." But I try really hard to not make Benjamin responsible for Mary Elizabeth. Does that make sense?
yes.
And as they get older, it's very easy to be like, "Hey, do this. Hey, do that." And I do. Like right now, like I mean, he'll say like he's like my he fetches things for me, right? Like so I'm like, "Go grab a bib or go grab a diaper. Can you get the wipes, or hey, can you hand me that syringe or whatever?" And we've always done that with him. And when he was little, it was fun. Like it was a game for him. Like he's helping mommy. But now I think, and he's starting to, he's a preteen. So it's, I get a little eye roll or whatever. And so I think that part I might back off on a bit where I'm trying, where she can just be a sister and not necessarily his responsibility. But on the other hand, I do need him a lot of times, especially if my husband travels a lot. I'm by myself with the kids, and I only have two hands, and so sometimes he does have to be responsible in that. But I really try to make it where he doesn't resent his sister, if that makes sense. Like I try to do everything that I can do for that. And one thing I started with him when he was little, and we still do now, years and years later, which I think is super important, is we started like one-on-one time with just Benjamin, right? Because Mary Elizabeth gets plenty of one-on-one time. She just have a seizure, and then all of the, everybody's looking at her and we go to the doctors, we go to therapy, and like so she's always one-on-one with somebody. And so we started one-on-one with Benjamin, and even now, like to this day, like now we call it date night. Like Ben and I go on date night, and we try to do it like once a week. Where if I'm bringing him to basketball, we'll leave early and we'll go get a burger and fries and a milkshake, and then we'll go to basketball practice together, and we'll have that time to kind of talk about whatever he wants to talk about, and really kind of focus on him without my phone, without thinking about Mary Elizabeth, without talking about Mary Elizabeth, but just very much all about Benjamin, so that he gets that time for himself, and that he realizes how important he is. And I know he knows that, but it's hard in the day-to-day life, and especially if you have a kiddo that needs a lot of help, or if you have a kiddo that has epilepsy. Like I mean, it's just you never know when they're gonna have a seizure. You never know when something Trina said I could curse in this show, like when shit hits the fan, like you just never know when that's going to happen. And so you have to be, that kid has to wait. Like there's no, you can't like, and I've told Ben that, like when he was like 2, I'm like, hold on a second, your sister's having a seizure. Like whatever you need is not important. Like it's not. And so, and so he learned that at an early age, unfortunately, but hopefully he's also learned that he is extremely important as well. And so I think that's the key, is to make sure that they are feeling super important and super special and not resentful of their siblings, because I think that it's an easy place to go as a kid, right? If you have one kid that's getting more attention than the other or whatever. And so I just try really hard to focus on him. So
I can actually expand on that. So my youngest sister, so I have a sister and a brother. My brother's just a couple years younger than me, and my sister is 14 years younger than me. And so my mom and dad always made me responsible for my sister. Like they were always like going out and doing things, and it wasn't that they like, I guess when you're the oldest, you still have to take care of your sister or your siblings, but it was expected. It was implied. And so I always say that to people, like, don't make the oldest responsible for the youngest, unless you're going to pay them. Because really, I mean, their time is,
right.
we're teaching them to have their own time. So,
And
so
I
I,
love that
I
you said that, Trina. I love that you just said that because that's something I've been kicking around lately is that especially during this pandemic, right? I don't even know if we can talk about it. It's too much. But we've been home, right? And we're home all the time. And Ben's home and Mary Elizabeth's home and my husband's working from home and then I'm home. And so after lunch, I created a mom hour because I thought if I don't do this, I'm not going to make it. And so I will put Benjamin next to his sister and let them watch a TV show for an hour. And he's responsible for her at that time. He changes her bib. He calls me if, she needs anything, if she's choking or whatever. And now I've been kicking around that I might pay him for that as a babysitter because that's what he's doing. He's babysitting. And and I know that neurotypical families that happens. It's very, very normal, but it's not the same thing because the older kid doesn't necessarily have to be on like the way Benjamin has to be on when he's watching Mary Elizabeth. And he knows that. He's very conscientious. He's very emotionally anxious would be the right way to say it about like keeping her safe and alive. And so that's something I've been kicking around is like, should I pay him for that hour of babysitting? Because in essence, that's what he's doing. He's babysitting. So I'm glad you said that. That's good. I need to do that.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that way. Like if you're gonna like, and this is like, if I could say that, if teenage me could say this to my parents, it'd be like, you're her parent. I'm her sister. And so your job is to be her parent, and my job is to just love her and like, pull pranks on her. So, so we have, let's see. Brenda says, great interview. Sarah, you and Seth are wonderful parents.
Brenda, thank you.
Tracy says one-on-one time is so important. I agree. You agree. We all agree on that. And then Laura says, I think it's true for most families with multiple kids. Kids need to be personalized attention without the confines of their siblings, whatever those confines are. And then Lindy says, thank you for your thoughtful and honest answers. So something else I want to talk to you about, because this is something that we discussed when we talked on the phone. What's the best way to phrase this? It's for like, what would you want everyone to know about you as a warrior mom? Like you as a mom in the special needs community.
Right. Yeah. That's a tough one because I find for myself, and I know all of us are different, right? Because we have different responsibilities and different sometimes not even choices, just like we just have different responsibilities. But like when we found out about Mary Elizabeth, I haven't worked since then, right? Because she's been a full-time job, and she's definitely a full-time job. And so that with having her, having kind of like your world thrown upside down, we didn't know, right? It was not that it's ever planned, but like we just had no idea, right? So it hit us like an airplane falling out of the sky, and so I had to like, and I'm still doing it. I feel like it's a struggle. So it's hard to figure out like what my purpose is. Does that make sense? And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've had lots of time to think. I've been home, but like what is my purpose? It's not just Mary Elizabeth's mom, and although that is a honorable job, and I am doing my best at it, and I work really hard at it, and I'm extremely passionate about it, right? But that's not who I am, if that makes sense, and it's not who I was before I had Mary Elizabeth, and so that's a hard one, and I don't really know if I know the answer of of that just yet. Does that make sense? Like I'm still trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
But I think that we struggle as special needs moms um, in in keeping relationships and creating relationships and nourishing them and nurturing them and giving the time and energy that they need to be sustainable, but not on purpose, right? Because our world is busy and stressful, and there's a lot of stuff going on. That's everybody's world, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
our world can change in a second, right? So we can be doing fine. So, for example, in quarantine, like we were in a groove, we were doing good, and then Mary Elizabeth's been having like these crazy, like giggling, laughing, and we're like, oh, how great! She's so happy to be home. She's happy everybody's here. She loves to swim every day. We're living the life. This is great. And then I bring her to physical therapy, and her physical therapist's like, I think those are seizures. And
Oh
so
no.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? Right. And by the way, they're not really treatable. And so it's like that sort of thing. And so now within a matter of a second, right, my world is upside down where I'm watching my kid have a seizure 120 times a day and I can't do anything about it. Or is she just laughing? I don't know. Right. And so then you add that. And that's just one example, right? It could be anything, right? There's always something with our kiddos. And so I can't be a good friend at that particular time, right? And I think I did. I think I went off the mat for a couple of weeks because number one, I was sad and upset and devastated. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go down the seizure road again. We were doing so well. We had everything under control. And here we are, like what's going on and what's the cause of it, and you know, the whole all the things that play in your mind. And I just think that like I get consumed with that, you know, and then that's kind of it. And so it's very hard, I think, to try to balance life when you're living in intense moments, right? Does that make sense?
It does. No,
And
I
so, and a lot of times it's like maybe it's a hospitalization, or maybe it's like we do lots of intensive therapy. So like, and especially we're doing less now because we're realizing like what's the trade-off between, you know, having a peaceful, happy life versus go, 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 go for Mary Elizabeth. But we used to travel all the time. So I was gone, you know, let's just say at least a week every month. But a lot of times we would go for like 4 weeks for an intensive therapy. And then we would do that 4 times a year. And then we would do stem cells. And then we would be doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy and this and that. And other moms do it too. It just looks different, right? So some of those kids might be in the hospital for a month, or they might be doing regular physical therapy, or whatever it is. And I find that when you're in that intense kind of part of dealing with your warrior, it's really hard to have to give people the time that they need, and then also to have, for me, to have patience sometimes with people who aren't living in this world, who are talking about, you know, my baby's been awake and they're teething and they haven't slept, and I'm just kind of like, normal circumstances, that's hard, that's a tough, you know, I mean, I get it, I understand that's hard, and that and lack of sleep is terrible for everybody or whatever, but like it's sometimes I have trouble empathizing with that. Does that make sense?
no, it
Am I
totally
going?
does. Yeah, no, I get that too.
We talk about this. I don't know if people talk about this, but like that part has been tricky for me. And so I really think it's just like finding people that are understanding and compassionate, and who I click with, my people, and they understand. You know, do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like I can sit and talk about stupid stuff too, like you know, I need that, and we all need that as a distraction, but sometimes I find that that's really hard to deal with. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. Like it's just like I remember this was so funny. Like not like funny in retrospect, but Scarlett was in the hospital and somebody was like, "Hey, can you go to my makeup party?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry, I cannot go to the makeup party. My daughter's in the hospital." And she's like, "Well, I really just want like my daughter is in the hospital. I don't have time for your Mary Kay party. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't. Like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Just
But the kicker is you want to be invited to the makeup party, and
yeah.
and that's the other piece of it, right? It's like we want to be included, we want to be invited, we're probably going to cancel at the last minute, and we don't want you to hate us for it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the part, and that's the hard part, I think, because we are needy. We need those relationships. We want to be included. We want to be quote unquote normal, right? But sometimes we can't, and I really just think like that's just like really diving in and finding the right people that get it, because like I have a couple of people that I can do that with, but some of my best friends from before Mary Elizabeth, like they don't. I mean, they'll call me and complain that their kid's not sleeping because they're teething. You know what I mean? And that's fine. Like, that's good. That's a good conversation. I don't want people to not want to engage with me because they're like, oh, I don't want to bother her. Or, oh, she's this, or oh, she has that, or whatever. It's like, yes, but I really do want to be included, and I really do want to hear about your stuff. And sometimes that's a nice break for me as well. Because, like, I'd love to talk about whether our kids are playing tackle football in a month, or whether, versus thinking about laughing seizures. Like, so I think that, I just think that there's a delicate balance. And so I think that's maybe one of the things I'd like people to know about me, is that I am consumed with Mary Elizabeth and keeping her happy, healthy, safe, thriving, ahead, being proactive. But then I also really, really, really want to be normal as well, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Like, I get that. And that's really what I want too. Like, I definitely want to be included, but I also need to have, like, you forgive me when I can't make your Mary Kay party because my kid's in the hospital, and then you not be offended that I snapped at you. So, I mean, we all have to have our own, I guess we all have to have our own realizations about this, but something that I want to tap on is that just because I have a child with epilepsy doesn't mean that I don't want to be included. Like, please still include me. My child has epilepsy, and we don't want to be in quarantine our whole lives. Like, we want to do things. We want to go out and enjoy these things. And if we can't because it's not safe for her, then I will go ahead and say, hey, thank you for the invite, but my child can't be there for that. And, it's very simple, because, like, please don't vanish from my life because my child has epilepsy. And if you don't know what to say, just tell me you don't know what to say, and I'll talk to you and I'll tell you.
Exactly. You can say, I have no idea what to say. Like, this is crazy, right? And and then we would be like, you're right, it is crazy, and we don't know what to do either. So we're all in the same boat,
Yeah. I'm making it up as I go. Like, I mean, that's literally how this is. It's just like, but it would be really nice if we've been friends for 20 years, if we still continue to be friends. And so,
right.
My kid has epilepsy. You don't know what to say to me. That's fine. Just say hi. That's really what it is. So we have a comment from Esperanza, who was on the show last week. She says, hello, ladies. And then she also says, finding your tribe that lifts you and your warrior up no matter what. We have Tony, who says, you're doing great. We love y'all. I think you may know this person. So I have always respected your wonderful ability to be her mom, but to also recognize when you need that mental break. Lindy, can we talk about the support system for special needs moms? Can we talk about the support system for special needs moms? Will extended family of special needs parents, aunts, uncles, and grandparents of special needs child ever really get how hard our life is? Speaking to my family, my brother actually quit his job to take care of my daughter after school. And my mother is flying down in August. And I think as long as you're open and honest with your family and really show them, like, this is how my life is, it's a very honest, reflective thought process there. But what would you say, Sarah?
Yeah. So to answer your question, will they ever really get it? No, you can't get it unless you're living it, right? And it's like, I always used to say that, Lindy. Like, I'm like, how do they not know? Like, this is crazy, right? But you can't unless you're living it, right? Because you didn't know before either, right? And so I think that if they'll get it, the answer is no. But will they start to understand and see? Yes, for sure. In our families, like, we've had it's been nice, because I feel like aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, sisters, brothers, whatever, they learn as you learn, and they take in as much as you give them as well, right? So you can, and you don't want to go on and on and on and on, right? Because you don't want to drive them away, but you can share stuff with them about how your day was. Like, this is what my day was. Like, it was really horrible. Can we talk about it or whatever? But I don't know if they'll ever actually get it. No. But as far as the support system goes, your family, you should utilize them to the best of your ability. So we do that. Like, we try to do vacations without kids, and we'll have both grandparents and a babysitter. Like, that's what it takes at my house for Mary Elizabeth. Like, if we go away, both grandparents and a babysitter. Or if I leave, then my husband also will typically have a grandparent there and or a babysitter, so that they can hold down the fort, right? Because you have to have a support system, and not just to, like, for people to talk about, like, to talk with you and to so that you can, like, just bounce stuff off, right, or vent or whatever. But you need a support system for when you need a break. And so that was my sister-in-law, Scotty, who just said, I like how you notice when you need a mental break. And this is, yes, ma'am, I am. I'm sorry. I'm good. Thank you. So I'm down the road on vacation, y'all. I'm sitting in front of a house, and the people came out to check on me. Yes, I'm okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, really. Anyway, okay. So,
well, we'll wrap it up because you probably don't want the police called on you.
Yeah, no, right. Well, I was going to tell Lindy, because Lindy's in the beginning of her journey, and well, not the beginning, but she's newer in her journey, and so I ran myself ragged, Lindy, in the very beginning. Like, the first couple of years of her life, number one, I was like kind of swimming in emotions, anger, grief, fear, sadness, all of it, right? And then also I was full steam ahead trying to learn everything, do everything, be everything, figure everything out to make it better, right? And I know you were the same way, because we have kind of the same personality. And so what I didn't know back then is that and people always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like, okay, but it doesn't really give you very much, right? And so I was sprinting fast for years. And when she was about 2.5 or 3, like, I had run out, and I needed time. Like, I needed time away, but I did not recognize that in myself in the beginning. My husband recognized that. And now I'm to the point where I can feel that, like, bubbling up of either, whether a lot of times it's anger and frustration, or anxiety and fear, or whatever your triggers are, whatever those feelings are. If you can recognize it, feel it kind of bubbling up, and then really take a strong pass. Like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I need some time. And I will say that's, like, a lot of times people, my 11-year-old will tell me, hey, Mom, maybe you need a break, but so he'll recognize it before me, because that's how he is. But I will recognize it in myself, and then I'll realize, like, I have to, like, physically get away. So it's not just an hour or two there, like, for mom time or me time. Like, you need that as well. But I think for special needs moms, the amount of, like, stress that we operate under, I've read a study, it's like comparable to that of a combat soldier who's, like, on the front lines in war, right? And so I've been doing that for 9 years. I've been fighting on the front lines for 9 years. And so now I realize, like, I have to physically remove myself from my house, because if I'm there and I hear her coughing, choking, having a seizure, laughing, whatever it is, then I can't turn it off, But if I escape, if I go somewhere else, then I can turn it off. And so I've gotten to the point now where when I recognize that, I do that. And, like, so last week I spent a couple of days at a beach house by myself, because I was at that point again, and I needed the time for myself, And so I think that is the other piece of it. And that's when you need your support system, Lindy, so that they can take care of your kid while you're gone. Does that make sense? Because they love your kid. And so, yeah. So anyway, wrap it up. Sorry.
No, they love your kid, and they love you, and that's why they help. That's why your family helps. And that's why my family helps. If I call my mom and said, if my mom doesn't live in the state, if I called my mom and said, I need her here tomorrow, she's like, I'm on a plane, I'm on my way. Like, luckily Southwest can do that. They have multiple flights, but it's so important to have that. And we talk about this a lot on Warrior Moms, and we talk about this in our community on Facebook. Self-care. Like, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And same as you, I ran myself ragged, and I learned the hard way that that's not how it should be. It's not good for me. It's not good for my daughter. It's not good for my husband. It's not good for our family. And so you really cannot pour from an empty cup. And Lindy, if you're at the beginning of your journey, being friends with Sarah sounds like a great person to be friends with because she's so knowledgeable. And if you need help in the community, always reach out to any of us in the Warrior Moms community because that's what we're here for. Sarah, I know you've got to go, and I appreciate you so much for coming onto the show during your vacation and all the antics that you had to go through just to be on the show tonight. So, give my
I'm sorry, but yes.
so I love having you in the community. I love that we met. And I just hope that you enjoy the rest of your vacation. And please give my best to Neil.
Thank you. I love it. I will tell Neil you said hey.
Okay.
All right. Well, take care. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you guys for joining the show tonight. Next week, we will have a great show for you as well. We have some great things coming up in the community. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in the warrior mom world. Like, I couldn't say that, but we definitely want to get Sarah off the show before she gets arrested or something like that. So you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll see you in the community. And join us next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.